Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be practicing vertical division again, but this time we're going to try dividing 3-digit numbers by 1-digit numbers. So let's start. I have a couple problems written down already. Let's start by looking at this first one on the left. So for this one, we're trying to do 308 divided by 2. So just like we did before, we're going to look at the first digit first, so which is 3. We're trying to see if we can put 2 into 3, and we can. So we're going to start with just the first digit. Seems like we can only put 2 one time into 3 without going over it. So now we do, so we put the 1 on top of the 3, and now we do 2 times 1 is 2, and we write that under. And then we subtract, so 3 minus 2 is equal to 1. Our next step is to bring down the next digit, which is the 0. So now we have 10. How many times can we put 2 into 10? Seems like we can put, this fits perfectly, so we can do 2 times 5 equals 10. And since it fits perfectly, we know that 2 times 5 is 10. We write 10 under, and then we subtract and we get 0. But we still have another digit, so our next step is to bring down the 8. And 0, 8 is the same thing as just saying 8. So our goal now is to see how many times we can put 2 into 8. And again, it seems to work out perfectly because 2 times 4 is equal to 8. So when we multiply and we write that under, and then we subtract, we get 0. If we end with 0 and there's no more digits to bring down, this means that we don't have a remainder. So our answer is perfectly 154. Now let's move on to the next problem. 308 divided by 3. Again, our first step is to just consider the first digit. How many times can 3 go into 3? Once. So, and it fits perfectly too. So now we do 3 times 1 is 3, and we subtract and we get 0. Now our next step is to bring down the next digit. So we're going to bring down this 0, and we get 0. What do we do now? Well, we don't bring down the next digit because that would mean that we've moved on past the second digit and we still don't have an answer over here. So we just do what we normally do, like we do in every problem. We just do 0 divided by 3. And from a couple of videos ago, you know that 0 divided by 3 is equal to 0. That's okay to put in the answer. So for the second digit of our answer, we have a 0. And just like we've done before, we multiply. 3 times 0 is 0, and we write the answer, and we subtract. Again, it's 0. Now we can bring down the last digit, 8. And so now we're trying to do 8 divided by 3. And the closest we can get is 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And when we subtract, we get 2. There's no more digits to bring down, so 2 is our remainder. And our answer is 102, remainder 2. Let's try the next problem. Let's first look at whether we can put 5 into the first digit. We can't, so let's extend our view to the first 2 digits, 38. We're trying to see how many times we can put 5 into 38 without going over 38. The closest we can get is 5 times 7. And notice how I put the 7 over the last digit that we're working with. Not the 3, but the 8, because we're looking at 38. 5 times 7 is 35. And we subtract and we get 3. Now we have one more digit to bring down, so we're going to bring down the 0. 30 divided by 5 is perfectly equal to 6. And then we multiply and subtract and we get 0. There's no remainder. It works out perfectly that our answer is 76. Now let's try 380 divided by 6. It seems like we can't just use the first digit, so we're going to extend our view to look at 38. 38 divided by 6 The closest we can get to 38 without going over it is 6 times 6, which is 36. And we subtract and we get 2. Now we can bring down the next digit, 0. And we can do 20 divided by 6. The closest we can get to 20 is 6 times 3, which is 18. And when we subtract, we get 2. It seems like we can't go any further because we have no more digits to bring down. So 2 is our remainder. And our answer is 63 remainder 2. Now let's look at another problem. Now we're going to do 315 divided by 5. Our first step is to see whether we can fit 5 into 3, and we can't, so let's look at 31. The closest we can get to 31 is 5 times 6, which is 30. And let's subtract, and we get 1. Then our next step is to bring down the 5, and we have 15. Then we divide again, 15 divided by 5, and that actually fits perfectly. So 5 times 3 is equal to 15. Then we multiply and subtract, and we get 0, so there's no remainder. And so our answer is perfectly 63. Now let's try 315 divided by 6. We can't seem to fit 6 into 3, so let's look at 31. The closest we can get to 31 is 6 times 5, which is 30. When we subtract, we get 1. Then our next step is to bring down the 5, and we get 15. Now we're trying to do 15 divided by 6. That doesn't work perfectly, so the closest we can get to 15 is 2. 6 times 2 is 12. And when we subtract, we get 3. So since we don't have any more digits to bring down, and it's too small to divide anymore, 3 is our remainder. So our answer is 52, remainder 3. That concludes our practice dividing 3-digit numbers by 1-digit numbers. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.